we will now go to Spixworth, 128 Park Road, and we have Sarah Everard with Jack Beasley presenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is an application for an annex extension to the front of the existing bungalow at 128 Park Road in Spixworth. So the property you can see outlined in red here, it's located at the junction of both Park Road and Red Wings Drive, with its access formed from Park Road. I think it's a detached property with a separate garage to the side. In terms of this side, what you can see is it's obviously set back from the road, from Park Road. We've got a bit of a staggered building line along Park Road with spacious frontage to the properties in this area, and they're sort of set back in that staggered way. So this is the existing property. And you see obviously it's got quite a large spacious front garden area at the moment. And then just a little bit of the wider sort of street scene and wider area here. So we're going to be looking at a front extension. So I think in this area, just to point out, we do have this very staggered approach to the to Park Road, which creates a very spacious setting to all of the dwellings along Park Road, particularly to the dwellings to the south. So this is the existing elevations of the property. It's a modest single-storey bungalow at the moment with just a flat roof rear extension as well. So in terms of the proposal and what we're looking at, so this is the annex. It's being located to the front of the property. It's approximately a 9 metre forward extension to the front of the property in this area, sort of just going into that front garden area. So in terms of the elevations, we have had a minor change in terms of the design of the property, which we've reconstructed, which is a change to the roof format. So this is the revised version. So we've got a hipped roof to the front. And then here you can see then this side extension at the front. So originally, as the plans came in, this was partially a flat roof with a hipped section at the front. The applicants have amended the plan to include the roof all along the front here. Just on this slide, I think what I just wanted to point out is there is some changes in land levels on this site, and it will become a little bit clearer once you see the photographs. The property itself does sit higher than the road level, so you can see sort of on the red lines there, it is obviously just sitting a bit higher than the road, and those changes in the elevations on the site here. But you can see it is quite a significant 9 metre front extension to the property. So in terms of the floor plan for the annex, this is the floor plan that has been proposed. It includes a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room and utility room. It has been designed so that it is wheelchair accessible. In terms of the application, officers do have concerns with the design and the scale of the annex proposed. We acknowledge, and it's set out in the report at section 5.8 and 5.9, obviously the needs of the applicant in terms of this application. In terms of disability and age are both protected characteristics which the council do have to take into consideration under the public sector equality duty. These needs, as we sort of set out, we do have to take in, these needs don't override everything in terms of planning consideration around the form, character and the design. In this instance, whilst acknowledging those needs for the applicant, we do feel that the size of this annex could be accommodated within the site at a small, but still achieving the same level of footprint, but revisions to the proposal so that it had less of an impact on the street scene. So for instance, an option would be to reduce the level of forward projection and build to the side here, or and as we'll see when we get to the photographs, there is quite a big driveway to the side which would also provide an option. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to reach a position where we were comfortable and could come up with a negotiated scheme to present to you. But we did take into account those needs, and we did feel that there were potentially other options to sort of accommodate the same level of accommodation to meet the needs for the residents within the site, without it being such a significant forward extension to the property, which would be out of character with the area. So just coming on to the property, this is as existing. So this is the front garden area, and from these photos you're beginning to see those changes in land levels, with Park Road sitting lower than the property itself. And again, this is sort of the driveway area. Just sort of swinging around so that you sort of this is looking west. And again, this is the driveway area. So this is one of the options where we felt that we could have extended the property to the side to provide a different option in terms of still providing the level of accommodation that the applicants are looking for, but just without such a significant forward projection. And again, this is the front garden area of the property. So I think it's from looking at it on the roads, I appreciate this is a single-storey property. I think here you're beginning to see it is in a prominent location at that junction of Park Road and Red Wings Garden, and it is visible within the street scene. So it is sitting at that higher level than the road itself, and obviously so the extension would come into this area here. And again, I think this is just looking east, so we've got just the property here. This is where I think you begin to see that staggered setback of the building line. So whilst we are talking about a single-storey front extension, it's going to be quite prominent within that street scene because of that setback distances of all of the properties in the area. And again, this is just swinging around. This is slightly further down Park Road. So this is the property here, and then you can see that turn into Red Wing Gardens here, and so the extension will come into this area here. So within the streets, I think it will be quite highly visible within that street scene. So overall, by virtue of the position, size and scale of the annex located on the front elevation of the property, it will be highly visible within the street scene. The forward extension fails to reflect the form and character of the area, resulting in a development which is out of character with the surrounding area. The proposal is considered to be contrary to GNLP Policy 2, Policy GC4 of the Broadland Development Management Policies, and Section 12 of the MPPF, which all relate to design. In recommending this application to you for refusal, we do consider that there are, as I've set out, alternative options that could meet the level of annex accommodation required within the site without the harm to the form and character of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I presume the planning officers have worked with the applicants to try and find some sort of halfway house to this saying.
So we have had conversations with the agent. I have discussed the scheme with the agent, and as has Jack, and unfortunately we've not been able to come to a position of an agreement on an amendment to the scheme beyond the change to the roof line, which we did request as well, because we did have consent for the initial roof line.
Okay, Stuart, please.
Yeah, I think I wanted to concur with what the Chair said as well. I think it's very important what you've done. I totally agree with the recommendation, because you've tried to negotiate, which is eminently sensible, to try to provide the provision which obviously the applicant needs. And I 100% agree with your appraisal of the application. We're still sort of wearing the scars of a similar application we had in Tavern, which was overdevelopment of that site in Tavern. And I absolutely agree with the approach you've taken to this application, and to try to achieve a satisfactory outcome for the applicant, but to protect the street scene and to use the plot well. So, you know, my view, absolutely correct, and with the recommendation.
Anybody else have any comments? No? Okay. We will go to, we have no objectors, we'll go to supporter Jeff Smith. Would you like to come to the front, Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, if you press the right-hand button to start speaking, and you have 5 minutes.
Thanks very much for agreeing to consider this application. My name's Jess Smith. I'm the granddad, and my wife over there in the wheelchair is the grandma who will occupy this granny annex. We're both almost 80. We've been married 55 years, and we're really not very well. My wife's very diabetic. Her leg's been amputated. I'm being treated for prostate cancer, and we're struggling to care for each other anymore. Luckily, our son at the back there has volunteered for us to go and live with him, but he's got 4 children in Spixworth, and we can't achieve that within the existing house, so we need an annex. And we need an annex that's got provision for wheelchair access throughout and for worsening health needs. The officers confirmed our proposal won't intrude on the amenity of neighbours. There's no objection from the neighbours. And it's even more than that. As we walk round the street in Spixworth, we're continuously stopped by our neighbours saying, when are you going to start building? Because they want us to sort ourselves out. So far so good in my mind. Then, however, the planners have got 3 objections. Firstly, undermine the visual character of Park Road. There's 2 comments on that. One, the site is surrounded by a high hedge. I measured it yesterday, 12 feet high. As a result, the scheme will basically not be visible from the street, other than the top of the roof. Also, they say it would intrude on the character of Park Road, but if you look at the character of Park Road, it's a mix of development, small, large, single story, second story, to the frontage, away from the frontage, and from my point of view, we're making no contribution at all to changing the existing mixed character of the street. Secondly, as the officers mentioned, they were trying to persuade us to change the scheme and put it up the side of the house, particularly, essentially. There's 2 problems. One, when you're planning a property for wheelchair access, the main thing with wheelchair access is you need space and clarity of movement, and dog-legging round the house makes that much more difficult. But even more important, the extension down the side would take out the windows of one of the bedrooms and the lounge dining room of the existing house, and there's no way our son can accept a development which would stop him having windows to one of his bedrooms and his dining lounge room. The third concern of the planners was that we'd sell it off as a separate dwelling. We've got no such intention, but we agree a condition that it won't be occupied other than with the house as a whole. So our conclusion is there's very clear benefits from care in the community and no significant objections. All I can ask is, if in doubt, if you could read the statement of our local councillor, Sue Holland, who knows this area better than anyone, I would suggest. And she clearly feels that planning consent is justified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone want to ask anything? No? We'll go straight to, if you'd like to return to your seat, sir. And I call Sue Holland, please. Thank you, Sue. You know the ropes by now.
Sorry?
You know the ropes by now.
Just a bit like getting the hang of it. Hello, colleagues, again. Yes, this one I absolutely would want to support. I did write in my submission why I wanted this brought to. I completely understand that there are different ways of looking at this, but I would suggest that on balance, the evidence of need does in this case outweigh any considerations. I would also suggest that where we look at in the NPPF, it goes throughout there, it's always talking about how the benefits outweigh the harm. I think you can absolutely see, if you go up Park Road, that used to be the main drive to the hall many years ago. The most recent or the earliest pieces of building in there are from the 1930s. So there are some small semi-detached bungalows. There is one bungalow on the other end of Park Road, which was originally a shop. So it's quite large and itself has a very large hedge round it, and it's on a corner on the Buxton Road. If you drive up Park Road, you will see that there are a huge diversity of properties up there. So we've got semi-detached 1930s bungalows, we've got chalets, we've got things that were built in the 70s. Some of them have very small front gardens, some of them are very much more set back. It's incredibly diverse. And I think actually that's one of the things that makes Spixworth quite an attractive village to live in the first place. So I would suggest that the harm is not really there. I don't see that this development would actually make significant difference to the street scene. I would also suggest, having looked at those photographs, I do think they may be a little out of date. They look to me as though they may have come from Google Maps. I think if you actually drive up the road now, you will see that hedge is much higher. You would actually quite struggle to see the bungalow as it sits, I think, at the moment anyway. So for me, I'm afraid my feeling is that we should be supporting this. I think the need outweighs the disadvantages of it. I think the issue of the changed layout, I would suggest there is a bit of a problem with that, because the only objection the parish council had was to do with parking. So regardless of the lighting and the windows, my suggestion would be, if you were to build out there, you would actually limit the amount of parking. And one of the things the neighbourhood plan requests is the suitable amount of parking for the bedrooms in the bungalows or whatever property it is. So I do think if you were trying to adjust it, it would actually impact on the parking and the ability to get around the property. So I don't really think that's an issue that would be a problem either, and you will see there's no other objections to this. I think it's important that we do allow for care in the community, and I think this is one example where actually this particular property would be beneficial to be built in this way, because I think the wheelchair access is quite demanding of space and size. So personally, I'm supporting that on that basis, and I hope you will take those things into account. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hond. Does anybody want to ask any questions to the councillor? No? Okay, we'll go straight to discussion then. This is a really hard one for me.
Yeah, it is.
I am slightly leaning towards approving it. Councillor Peter Berry, would you like to have a comment?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I can understand the officer's reasons for recommending refusal, but seeing that there's no objections from the neighbours, there seems to be plenty of land around it, and the annex would be hidden by this tall 12-foot fence hedge. And also they're happy to put a codicil to prevent the property from being, or the annex being sold off separately. Yeah. In this situation, I think we'll see it in various places. Expediency and a decision needs to be made quickly to give the people clarity as to what's going to happen. In this case, I see no reason to want to object to it, and I would go against refusal.
Thank you. Anybody else? Beeben.
I somewhat agree with the officer's recommendation, but there is a humanitarian consideration and the evidence of need. So when they come into balance, I give more support or more weightage to the humanitarian consideration. So I think I like to propose to approve the application. Thank you.
You have a seconder?
Yeah, this is just one comment.
Yes, certainly, Stuart. Yeah.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think on reflection, I think on the basis there is no strong local objection, on the basis of need, and on the basis of getting how can I say, a lot of support locally. And I'm agreeing again with you, Chair, that I think that is finely balanced, very finely balanced. It's effectively aesthetics versus need. And I think I would come down after considering and listening to the other presentations. I would come down and I think really we should support this. Yeah.
I too find this a really difficult one to determine. My question or thought on this is, if this was an ordinary house extension that was coming before me, my feeling would be it should be refused on the grounds of harm to the character and appearance of the area and poor quality design. So I'm thinking we have to think about the long-term sustainability of approving a development such as this, and in the long term I think it isn't sustainable. So although it's a difficult decision to make, my gut feeling is to agree with the officer's recommendation on this. My question to the officers is, if the committee decided to approve this, what would be the planning policy reasons for doing so that we would put forward? Because the question has been raised of humanitarian need, which I completely agree, that's what's making this very difficult. But does that carry the most weight in terms of planning policy? So in policy terms, if we went with approval, what would be the reason given in planning reasons for that? Is that a higher weight than the planning, you know, harm and character, damage to the harm and character of the area and design? I'm slightly unclear about policy here. Thank you.
Well, I'll pick that up, and you might want to come in, Sarah, afterwards. But I think what you're doing as members is considering everything in the balance. That's the same thing that we do as planning officers. We consider everything within the balance. Now, within there would be everything that's in this report already. So it would be the impact on the amenity, would be the impact on the design and character of the area, and it would be about the Equalities Act as has been referenced in the report. If you as members choose to give more weight to that, that's fully your choice to do so. So I don't think you need to add anything extra. It's more that you're just, the balance in terms of a planning perspective has been tipped because you feel as though that's a more important, well, not more important, but it feels as though it's tipped the balance in favour of approving this application. So if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Personally, my feeling is the need is more important than the appearance as such. It is covered by a 12-foot fence. No one's going to see it. They've got support from neighbours. It's a need which is now. The need is now.
It's not contentious locally.
No, it's not contentious locally. Ken, yes.
You've just summed up what I was saying, because if you look at point 4.2, Councillor Holland's point, she makes 2 points. Park Road consists of houses, etc. And the reason for the extension is for a disabled parent. Now, I don't think the officers would argue against point 2, the need for the help. And when I listen to Sue, it seems to me that I don't think the case stands for point 1, because Park Road consists of houses, bungalows and chalets of considerable diversity. It can be argued the side and road will not be noticeably different so as to cause concern. Do the officers dispute that and don't agree with that?
In the nicest possible way, yes, I do, because that's what our report is suggesting. We're suggesting that there would be an impact on the street scene. Sarah's picked up on all the points. It's in the report. I won't really reiterate it, other than say there is a staggered approach to the dwellings there. I would sort of paraphrase the comment Councillor Lamming made as well. Would we be looking at this so positively if it wasn't for the situation that we've got? I don't know. That's for members to decide. It's not for me to say. But to answer the question specifically, yes, we consider the application for the extension wouldn't be in keeping with the street scene. The but I'm going to add though, and just to make the point, but I think you've all picked this up anyway, is that the officers have worked really hard with the applicant
sure.
to try to find the solution. We haven't come here just belligerently saying, right, we need to refuse this because it's not okay. We've continued to try to work with them. So look, I'm not going to tell you this again, but you know this, the whole point of a planning committee is sometimes you might disagree with where we've got to. So I'll leave it at that and for members to determine.
Because I think the reasons they've given does take the balance for me. And if this was refused and it went to appeal, I wonder how strong you feel your case would be. I think if, and I'm sure the facts from Sue Holland are correct, and they could be supported, I imagine, locally from what she said.
I'll just answer, but only very briefly.
Well, of course.
I don't know in this one. You know, I'm confident in our decision because we wouldn't be recommending it for refusal if we didn't think we were confident.
Of course.
But we don't get a lot of these cases that go to appeal, so I can't give you the precedents. No. I can't give you the, you know, I can't be so definitive as I hopefully was with the highways matter from the last application. This is subjective. You know, design is subjective. It's always going to be. And what balance the inspector would give to the issues that the family are facing, I don't know.
I understand. Yeah.
I have to say, I do appreciate the officers have been working very hard with the agent and the applicant, but I understand Mr Smith's comments about the rejigging where you want for the side is going to lose light from the windows. So it's 50-50, isn't it, really? Peter?
Yeah, as I stated earlier, I would just say that expediency, it sounds like due to health issues, a decision needs to be made quickly, and if we were to waste the applicant's time by refusing and then them having to go to an appeal and then that was upheld, just think of the amount of upset and time that would be wasted on this. I can see the planning reasons perhaps turning it down, but I think the humanitarian case overrides that, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to vote for the refusal first. So if you're happy to refuse this application, would you please raise your hand? That's one. Okay, we have a proposal to accept this application from Bibin. All those in favour of accepting
Sorry, I've been
go on.
very helpful here, but hopefully helpful. The proposal will be to approve the application, if that's what we're proposing. So not delegating, but approval with conditions. And it's probably just worth us saying, can we just run through what the conditions would be that we'd add?
I think one condition would be it's for family use.
Yeah, well, perhaps if I just leave it to Sarah just to talk through the conditions that we're proposing, just to make sure members are happy with them before we then go to the vote. Okay. Please.
So I think the conditions we'd look at would be the standard ones around the time limit and the submitted drawings. We'd like to have the details of the materials for the annex, an annex occupancy condition, which just secures it as an annex, means it can't be occupied separately in the future, and one just to secure the parking and the turning as shown on the plans.
Everybody happy with that? Yes. Okay, so do we need one? Are you seconding? Yep, okay, Pete the second.
Could I just be clear, what is the proposal now from Ben?
So the proposal is approval with conditions, approval with those conditions that Sarah has just run through.
I see. Thank you.
You happy with that, Ken? You're happy with that? Yeah. Okay, you're happy to accept that? Please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. You may leave if you wish. Right, we'll carry on. We have Brundle, 10 Laurel Drive, and Sarah is presenting again.
Okay, so this is an application for extensions to the existing dwelling at 10 Laurel Drive. So an existing property, as you can see outlined in red here, is a detached property. We've got Laurel Drive comes along here. The property is set back from the road, and it's set back further than some of the other properties in the vicinity. In the main properties in the immediate area, they're all detached dwellings. So just in terms of the satellite view, we can see the property here. It's got an existing front garden area and some parking in the to the front as well. And again, this is just to give you a bit of a wider context of the site, so you can see the sort of surrounding properties. So in terms of the existing property, it's a modest single-storey building. So your east elevation is the elevation that is fronting towards the highway. So the principal elevation is the south elevation, which is to the side here. So just, sort of a mix of different gables and things in terms of the property at the moment. So in terms of what they are proposing to do, so the applicants are looking at extending the property. So they're looking at raising the roof line. So at the moment, the existing roof line, if I just go backwards, we've got a couple of different roof heights at the moment. We've got a taller section for the main property and then slightly lower gable to the front. So they are looking at increasing the height of the property. So across the taller bit of the property, that's about an increase of approximately a metre, and then it was slightly more at the front of the property. And then they are looking at extending the property forward. So if you remember from the site plan, this property is set back from the highway and set back further than some of the other properties, which will be a bit clearer when we get to the block plan. So they're looking at extending it forward. They're not looking at extending it to the rear at all. In terms of the application, we have had some amendments on this application. Jack's backed on those amendments with the applicants. So we do have a proposal for 2 dormers to go in onto the north elevation. In terms of these windows, these are serving bathrooms and are proposed to be obscure glazed. And then this is a high-level window there just to prevent any overlooking. But I'll point out where the dormers are and where that sits in terms of any so once we get onto the block plan. In terms of the design, so we did have the gable, if I just go back to the side here, this gable itself is actually being dropped. This is the side closest to the neighbour to the south, so that gable actually extension is being dropped on that side, and you can sort of see the outline of it here. It's being made much smaller as well. In terms of that south elevation, there were originally going to be some windows in the roof here, and those have been proposed to be taken out. The only window we have on that side elevation is serving a landing, so not a non-habitable room. Just in terms of the design of the area and of the bungalow itself, we have had some comments in terms of the heritage of the property, and we just want to confirm that the building isn't listed and it's not in a conservation area, and it wouldn't be considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. Notwithstanding that, the applicants have tried to keep some of the features of the original property. So, they're proposing to reinstate that timber boarding. In addition, sort of in terms of the eaves heights, in terms of the design, they're keeping the eaves heights as existing. It's just increasing in height and obviously coming further forward. So there's quite a lot of changes in terms of the property, so I hope that sort of makes them make a bit more sense. So in terms of what the proposal would be for, so obviously we're increasing the forward of the dwelling, and then it would provide 2 bedrooms in that roof space into a sort of shallow bungalow style. So in terms of how it sits within the property, within the area, so we have the dorms are on that north elevation. So this area here is actually the access to this property. So this isn't their garden area. The garden area for that property is here. So this is just their driveway and access. In terms of those windows anyway, because they're serving bathrooms, they're going to be obscure glazed, and we've got a condition to secure that. And in terms of that dormer there, that's just a high-level window in that area. So it's not extending out to the sides any further, it's just extending forward. So that rear elevation, that's where that rear of the property always was. So we're just coming further forward now to reflect the fact that there is actually quite a large front garden space. It is set back from the other property, or set further back than other properties. And there's still sufficient space to provide, a front garden plus sufficient parking in the area. So just in terms of the existing property, this is the existing dwelling, this is its front elevation. So this is, and this is the front garden, so you can see that's where we've got that quite large front garden in this area. This is the south elevation of the property. And then this is the north elevation, so it's on that north elevation where those new dormers are going. And this is the rear elevation. So this elevation, we're not this will still be the rear elevation. The pitch of the roof is going to be increased, and that's going to be by about 1 metre. There will be a new window going in this area here. We have looked at the back-to-back distances between the properties. There is quite a significant back-to-back distance to the nearest property of about 41 metres, which is considered to be acceptable, and we wouldn't have concerns in terms of overlooking from that window, just to clarify that. And again, this is the rear garden. So just coming back, so this is from Laurel Drive. Obviously it's an unmade up road. You can see the property, unfortunately slightly hidden by this person's van, but this is their parking area, so it is set back from the road, so you're only really just getting a glimpse of it from the road itself. In terms of Laurel Drive itself, there is quite a lot of different, it's not a homogeneous street scene at all. There is quite a lot of variety in this street scene. It's a mixture of bungalows, chalet bungalows, and also two-storey properties. So just got a little bit in terms of the design. So this photo, as you can see, this is the property itself here. This is that neighbour's access drive there, but not, as you can see, it's not garden space, it's just their access drive there. In terms of just some of the other properties in the area, this is one of the ones that's been more recently redone, and I think the reason we wanted to bring some of the other properties to show you is there has been some comments around the heritage impact. Obviously, we don't think there is a heritage impact at all, and there is quite a variety, but just to show some of that variety. In terms of the introduction of dormers, I think that has been raised as a concern. This is one of the neighbouring properties that already does have flat roof dormers on it, and that's within the immediate vicinity of the property. And again, this is a more modern replacement dwelling, also in the immediate vicinity of the site. This is just looking along Laurel Drive, and again, this is where sort of there is those different designs of the area, and it's like I said, it's not very homogeneous at all. There's quite a lot of difference. So overall, the design, the extensions are considered to be acceptable, the design is considered to be acceptable. We have had comments in terms of the impact upon amenity, but we are happy that the proposal wouldn't result in an adverse impact on amenity for neighbouring properties, and that wouldn't warrant a reason for refusal, and as such we recommend it to you for approval. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for the officer? No? Okay. Sarah, how long did you say was the back garden?
Sorry?
How long did you say was the back garden?
So I don't know the length of their back garden exactly, but in terms of, in terms of the back-to-back distances, so we've got a property here.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
So the back-to-back distances between the end of this one and the end of this property here, which you can't quite see on this slide, that's 41 metres.
So their back garden backs onto another back garden?
Yes. Yeah, so just that back-to-back distance.
Okay. Stuart?
Yeah, just one question. I'm sorry, if I can't see, I missed it. Read the ridge height. What's the change in the ridge height, please?
So I don't know how well that's showing on. So there's a couple of changes. So the taller part of the property, which I don't know if you can just see the red line along here, that's the existing taller part of the property. That's increasing by approximately 1 metre in height. I've got to say I'm not quite sure the distance of that one. Obviously it's going to be higher, but that's the bit to the front. So that will be a higher increase to the front, but the rear section is only increasing by 1 metre.
Just to follow up on that, what will be the visual impact from neighbouring properties? I mean, I couldn't really see there would be, but can you just sort of enlighten us a bit on that, please?
So I think probably from the block plan, this is probably the easiest to see. So the existing property, it sits here, so it is going to be visible from the rear gardens. I think this section, like I said, is only actually increasing by approximately 1 metre in this section. The forward section of the building is increasing by a bit more. So whilst it will be visible, It's not considered to be a reason to recommend refusal on it. In terms of this property here, obviously they did have a much larger gable in this area here, and that is actually dropping in height and size and scale in there. So that bit, which is the absolute closest bit to that southern property, is dropping in size and scale. We have considered, we don't consider this would be overbearing in terms of the surrounding properties. We also don't consider this going to result in overshadowing of the surrounding properties either. So we have tried to take into account all of those concerns. We know there have been a number of comments raised in terms of the application.
Okay, anybody else? No, we have two objectors, Julia Corbett and Kenneth Noakes. If you'd like to come to the front, please. I understand you're both speaking. Yes. Yes, so you have 5 minutes each. And just press the right-hand button to start, please.
Good morning, Chair and everybody else. I'm Julia Corbett. I live at 11A West End Avenue, which is down the hill from Laurel Drive. I bought my bungalow in West End Avenue and moved in 2012. And since then, I've particularly enjoyed my large private patio at the rear of my property, which isn't currently overlooked. I hope you've all had a chance to look at the photographs uploaded onto the planning site, taken by me and my neighbours. That privacy will be removed by the window in the west elevation of the proposed development of number 10 Laurel Drive. This window will also give a view into my living room. My two neighbours will be similarly overlooked. Helen King at number 11 would be here and speaking, but she's unfortunately in Spain, but she has uploaded a lot of comment and objections. The ground rises considerably behind my house up to Laurel Drive. When I moved in and I looked up to this property, which I can see the west gable end very clearly, I can't see the lower windows, but I can see the upper part, I thought it was a large 2-storey dwelling. I was surprised, therefore, when I walked up Laurel Drive and looked at the front of number 10 to see that it is, in fact, a single-storey dwelling. That's the difference the topography of this area makes. Adding a metre, possibly more, to the roof height will give the appearance from where I live of a larger than 2-storey house. Add to that the proposed upper floor flat roof dormers, and I and my neighbours will be gazing up and be overlooked by a much larger building of overbearing dimensions. Comparing the plans in this application to houses on the east side of Laurel Drive is misleading, which is what the planning officer did. They are on the same level as number 10. To reiterate, I and my neighbours live downhill from number 10, and even if we were able to make our houses 2 stories high, we would never achieve the height of number 10 Laurel Drive as it stands now. The houses on the east side of Laurel Drive do not form part of the original West End estate as designed by Edward Boardman and built in the 1920s and 30s. They are, unique. With a heritage, it isn't legally protected, but that doesn't mean this area shouldn't be looked after. Once the heritage aspects of the area are lost, they're lost forever. To allow the height of this property to be increased sets a precedent for neighbouring properties on that west side of Laurel Drive. There could be other overbearing houses looking down on us in West End Avenue in due course. I don't think the block plan highlighted my property or that of my neighbours adequately, as shown in the planning officer's presentation. Finally, number 10 Laurel Drive is for sale, being advertised with a private garden. I and my neighbours won't have private gardens if this application is successful. We'll also lose privacy within our houses too. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. I would like to speak in regard to issues of overlooking and loss of privacy. We live at number 9 at West End Avenue. The rear of our property looks east, directly in line with the west elevation of 10 Laurel Drive. which was built on higher ground than our bungalow. Presently, we can see clearly from just above their window height to the ridge height of number 10. If planning is approved for a house with a higher ridge height and a deep west-facing window, the occupants of number 10 would be able to look directly down into the rear of our property. We are very concerned about losing privacy in parts of our garden, especially the non-overlooked patio where double doors lead into our bright double aspect bedroom. We have sent photographs to substantiate our concerns and would like to know if the committee have been given the opportunity to see those photos. If not, I do have copies of them with me for you, if you wouldn't mind taking a look at them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speakers, please? No? Okay, you may return to your seats. Thank you. General discussion? Anybody want to start?
Sorry, Chair, but Councillor Laming's going to speak as well.
Of course, yes, sorry. Sorry, Anna, I forgot.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak today. This plan has undergone some amendments since it first was put forward, but I still object to it overall and thought it would be best for it to be determined by the Planning Committee. It is to be noted that the Parish Council has also raised an objection, and so have a number of neighbours. The application still outlines plans for a substantial change to the current dwelling in terms of overall size. I consider this to be overdevelopment of the site, which is not in keeping with the surrounding pattern of development, and I am still of the view that the design of the dormers on the north elevation and the building overall is not in keeping with the character of neighbouring properties. Although the Juliet balcony has been removed from the plans, they still retain an upper level window on the west elevation which will overlook three neighbouring properties in West End Avenue, thus having a detrimental impact on their amenity. The view from the window will give access both to the interior of at least one of the properties nearby and into the gardens of some of the other properties. Photos have been uploaded onto the planning website by nearby residents which illustrate this. Parish councillors also visited neighbouring properties and agreed with this assessment. The property is on elevated ground when compared with others, so the proposed increase in height to incorporate a first floor will have an additional negative impact on them in terms of reduced amenity. The land slopes steeply from the property both to the west and the south, and if this plan is approved, the property will be well above neighbouring properties in West End Avenue and some in Laurel Drive, causing it to be overbearing. I note the comments submitted by the Heritage Officer, which say that the area with respect to heritage has been subject to change, so heritage is not a reason to object. But what is not entirely in the report before you is the Heritage Officer also made these comments on the 12th of February 2025. I quote, "With the exception of the large flat roof dormer windows to the north side, I note that some attempt has been made to replicate the cottage style with the mock timber framing to fit in with the local character. I think with regard to character, it is more the size and scale of the property, considering its location on the plot and neighbouring properties, ? Concerns would therefore be more overbearing and neighbour amenity rather than architectural style. In design terms, with regard to the appearance of the property, it would only be the flat roof dormer on the north side which would be out of keeping. If you designed it with 2 or 3 Lucan style dormers like the rest of the estate, given the views of the building from Laurel Drive, that would be acceptable from a fitting in with character point of view. So the Heritage Officer did recognise the concerns raised about design, overdevelopment and neighbour amenity. And finally, it is not a requirement for an application such as this one, but I do note the plans do not include the installation of renewable energy facilities to make the building more sustainable in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Any questions for the councillor? No? Right, yes.
Point that the lady made just now, is that relevant and something the officers have considered about the future? Did you say, you said, was there any plan for future arrangements for heating in a different way?
Yes, so my interest in all applications when they come forward is the long-term sustainability of the plans put forward, and I couldn't see in this application that there were any plans to make it more sustainable, but that's just an additional comment. It's not a requirement from a planning policy point of view.
Councillor Lamb's already said it. I would agree with what she said.
It's not relevant, you're saying?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Who would like to open discussion? Nobody? Peter?
Yeah, well, all I would just get a crowd going. It's a situation where I can see why the officers have approved, recommended approval. We also got a situation where you think, yes, the site could probably do with that improvement, but having heard the representations of neighbours, it seems that I think we can probably find it hard to sit here and overlook the fact that it's an elevated site and the impact it will have on neighbouring properties who are below it. So I can see a case for rejecting this.
Anybody else? Do you want to say something?
Just a couple of things, really. Firstly, I think it's really worth noting that the ridge height is only being raised by a metre. That's really not a great deal of increase. And in terms of if we're looking at potential for overbearing, well, it's getting no closer to the rear boundaries and it's only going up a metre. So there's going to be no real change in that outlook of any significance. In terms of overshadowing, again, a metre, and you've got a hit like that as well. Sorry, a gable. Right? So there's not really any change there. So in terms of trying to find a reason of refusal, I just don't think there is one there. We won't be here otherwise. Good point that Sarah's made to me as well is that they could put a rear window in under permitted development as well. So actually that potential impact of overlooking, it's not really there either. And also I still, I will say this, I wasn't necessarily going to, if you had a living room window up there, I think that's different to a bedroom window. You know, I don't think people are necessarily standing at their bedroom windows overlooking people, whereas a living room window, people are in there more often and would you look out that window naturally. So with all those things in play, and we've talked about the character and the appearance of the area and all those sorts of things, and the significant distances that Sarah's raised as well between the properties at the rear, that's why we're here justifying a recommendation for approval at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to go straight to the vote. That we approve with conditions. All those in favour, please? Thank you. Unanimous. Right, we go. Next application is Unit 4, Blackberry Court, Hurlston, and we have Helen Bowman presenting.
Thank you. Okay. This application relates to Unit 4 in Blackberry Court, which is part of the Sweetbriar in Retail Park in Helston. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So it's this particular unit here. I think it's worth noting, obviously, on the plan, that this purple line here is the boundary between Broadland and the city. So actually the majority of the retail park is actually within the City Council's jurisdiction. So obviously we've got the main ring road, Sweetbriar Road, the outer ring road going along there. You'll also be familiar with the Asda store there on the corner, going up to the Drayton Road. It's also important to note here that the City Council have approved an outline permission for retail in this location. So that's outline, but they also currently have a reserved matter for a Lidl store, which is still under their consideration. So that's within that area there. Just flicking through the plan, so just in a bit more detail here, this is the particular unit that we're looking at. And again here, just on the aerial view, you can obviously see the existing shared car park there, and this is the location where we've got the outline permission for additional retail. When the permission was originally granted, there is a specific use condition on it restricting the sale of goods largely to bulky comparison goods. And we also have policy R2 in the development, the Broadland DM DPD, which restricts these units to bulky durable goods. Obviously that plan was adopted back in 2015, so it's 10 years old now. So what is being proposed is to allow a more relaxation of the type of goods that can be sold. So to allow the sale of comparison goods as well as convenience goods as well as comparison goods, which also includes food and drink. In particular, the intended occupier is farm foods at this point. So technically, because we have this policy R2, then any relaxation to allow convenience goods is contrary to that policy. But I think members will obviously appreciate that actually in the last 10 years the retail industry has changed significantly. We've had changes in technology, online retailing. The pandemic completely changed how we kind of shop. And this is actually backed up as part of the GNLP. There was a study, for the evidence base of the GNLP in terms of retail, and actually that identified and forecasted by, I think it was about 2038, that there would be a surplus of 20,000 square metres of comparison space within the Greater Norwich area. So I think that backs up with the evidence that we're probably already aware of, that actually the retail sector has completely changed. I think that is it's a significant material consideration in determining this application, that things have moved on. In addition, there is a requirement to protect our local and district centres and city centre. The applicant has completed a sequential test, and there are no alternative available sites which would fulfil this need. I think we have proposed a condition to retain or not subdivide the unit, because obviously the sequential test has been based on a larger unit, and there could obviously have been smaller units within the district centre which may have met that need. It also then retains those larger units, so we don't lose a supply of large retail units in the area. In terms of its sustainability, if I just move the slides along, there you see there's a, it was formerly carpets in there. So in terms of sustainability, it has pedestrian access, there's existing pedestrian route, pedestrian access there, it's on bus routes, so we'd consider it to be a sustainable location. The highway officer he's not objected to the application. I think that's quite key. He has suggested a number of things that he would quite like, I think is the best way of saying it, or improvements which may make the site more accessible and sustainable in terms of pedestrian access, etc. But I think what we need to consider with all conditions is whether it's reasonable and necessary to make that development acceptable. So yes, we can have a wish list, but actually do we, do those things need to happen? So he's suggested a number of things. One was cycle parking, which we have conditioned because actually improved cycle parking near the entrance would be an improvement, and actually does relate to the sort of scale of the proposal and just changing the goods sold. He's also suggested putting curbing along the edge of this footpath here along Sweetbriar Road. You can see along here, I think he's wanting an actual curbing to the back to try and prevent overgrowth. The footpath is there though, so I think that's not reasonable really for us to require that. It's also suggested it would be nice to have green man crossings at these points. There are existing traffic lights. Again, that is just not reasonable for this type of scheme. There will be further improvements as part of the outline in the Lidl application, which the City Council secured, because obviously that's a much larger development. The other issues are kind of car parking. We're obviously using the existing access still. So it's in shared car parking with 305 spaces, which are shared between all the units. In terms of disabled parking, I've highlighted here where the disabled car parking is. There are some in front of the 2 spaces directly in front of the store already, and that is, I think, 20 spaces I counted, which works out about 6.5%, which is the sorry, that's what's causing the problem. So in terms of the car parking, we see that that's an acceptable level. They will, obviously, if additional retail is built out in the City Council area, there will be additional car parking with that as well. Is that better? Yeah. Slight technical issue. So I think in conclusion, basically the retail industry has changed. This is being backed up by a study that we had for the GNLP. There is potentially a surplus of comparison goods, and we would see that as a material consideration from departing from policy R2. There's been no sequentially preferable sites for the development. We consider it to be a sustainable location, and there's no significant adverse impacts in terms of visual neighbour amenity, highway safety, etc. So we would like to recommend approval.
Thank you, Helen. Anybody want to ask the officer anything? No? Oh, Bill, yes. Hello.
Yeah, I know this retail part, and to be quite honest, it is very, very low footfall in that area, and I think the store would improve the footfall for all the other companies that are in the area.
Yeah, thank you. I think this proposal basically fills a vacant space on this site. The officers eloquently shown what the difference is in the trading patterns of retail, and to me, there's every conceivable reason to approve this application. And I think it'd be completely unreasonable and frankly stupid to insist on most of the highways recommendations, because you're effectively asking one applicant who's filling a vacant space, which will improve the shopping environment and the shopping potential for local residents and offer more choice in the area, to effectively foot the bill or to pay for some things like, for example, the curb on the left-hand side, which goes up against a hedge. Well, you know, that would be very nice all over Norfolk, but that just doesn't happen. So I just think, you know, frankly, that's just stupid. So, you know, that's just my comment.
Thanks, Jack. Right, I'm going to call Sophie Moore. Sorry you've had to wait so long, Sophie. Let's come to the front. It's the right-hand button, and you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this application, which seeks permission to allow the sale of food from an existing unit. The proposal provides the opportunity to bring a vacant unit back into use and increase the diversity of the existing offer at Sweetbriar Retail Park, bringing new jobs and economic investment into the area. As you will have read and heard, the application has been recommended for approval subject to a number of conditions. This recommendation follows comprehensive and robust assessment by your professional officers and all statutory technical consultees. Sweetbriar Retail Park was originally granted permission in 1988 and has operated as predominantly bulky retail goods location for the past 30 years. More recently, however, social and economic changes, such as the rise in online shopping, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, have had a significant permanent impact on consumer spending behaviour across the UK. Previous household names such as Toys R Us, Debenhams and Wilko have all failed. As identified in the Council's retail study, Sweetbriar Retail Park has not been immune to that trend, with major brands, IKEA, Maplin and Carpetright, all ceasing to trade in the last few years. In response to those pressures, the retail park has been forced to diversify its offer, including not only convenience retailing, but also wider commercial uses, with planning permission having recently been granted for a gym in the adjacent unit, and a reserved matters application for Lidl remains under consideration by Norwich City Council. Unit 4 was last occupied by Carpetright in July 2024. Following the administration of the company, the site has lay vacant. The existing wording of the condition prevents a food store from moving into the unit and restricts the use of the building. Approving this application would provide an opportunity to re-let an empty building to a well-known food retailer whilst maintaining the option for the unit to be used for bulky goods in the future. The application complies with all retail policies relating to retail development in the NPPF, which is a material consideration, indicating the planning permission should be granted. The introduction of a discount frozen food retailer, which is lacking in this location, would not conflict with the offer at M&S or the proposed Lidl. Allowing farm foods to occupy Unit 4 will enhance consumer choice on the retail park, meeting residents' needs in a sustainable location. The investment into bringing this unit back into economical use will ensure that the floor space does not fall into long-term vacancy, and introducing a new retailer into the area will bring economic growth, which will encourage continued investment at the retail park, hopefully resulting in the reletting of other vacant units. The proposal will create additional employment positions and associated wage provision for local people. The proposed farm foods operation will typically employ more staff than traditional bulky goods retailers, Retail jobs are socially inclusive in that they provide a range of jobs for both full-time and part-time nature. The immediate area has changed significantly since the local plan was adopted. The wider locality has seen a significant increase in new homes, including new residential development to the north of Drayton High Road. The new food store will assist in serving the growing population of the area. The application has been assessed from a highways perspective with no objections raised. Highways officers confirm the unit is located in a highly sustainable location. The retail park is on a bus route with a bus stop outside the new residential development linking to the site. There are approximately 7 buses an hour serving the local area, and there are existing pedestrian paths. Cycle parking will be secured through condition to promote additional sustainable travel options. Both the Highways Authority and your officers support the application, and the grounds of the Norwich City Council objection cannot be relied upon as a reason to refuse. In summary, this proposal represents a positive opportunity to enhance local convenience shopping, create jobs and support the local economy. We very much hope that members can support the recommendation of your professional officers and vote to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask, where is staff parking?
At the retail park.
Are they behind the unit or in front?
I'm not sure of the answer to that in terms of staff parking, but...
Where are the staff parking?
The actual parking is in front of the building, but there are some access around the back. I think that's probably
I don't think there's any designated staff parking, particularly because I think the area to the rear is for loading and deliveries. So I think you would block. So it would be either an arrangement for them to park in the main car park, or so there's no designated staff car park.
Continue. Where's staff park? Because there's quite a, when it's busy, that car park is jammed.
I think it's important to note that it's obviously an existing unit, so the parking of the staff will continue as it would if it continued as a bulky goods unit. I know.
Anybody else got any comments for the speaker? Peter?
Well, it's just an observation. Really. I'm just staggered that Norwich City Council could actually object to this. It's an opportunity to fill a unit, provide extra employment and services to the area. I find it amazing that they've objected. Thank you.
Just jealous. Yeah. Right, we'll go for recommendation. Approval of conditions. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Helen. I've got Ellie Yarnham for the last one. I think we're doing pretty well with time, aren't we? Doing very well. I think this one's pretty straightforward, Ellie, isn't it? Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Don't know if the committee heard me. 7 Buxton Road, Old Quarry in Hainford.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. I won't take up much of your time at all. So this one is for a variation of condition on the old quarry site, which is relating to Brookside Depot. So Brookside Depot in 2013 got permission for redevelopment. And then this site, which is almost opposite the side of the road, was given a temporary permission to house the refuse vehicles for staff welfare, and that permission expires in a couple of days' time. So you can see just in the blue there's the actual Brookside Depot under redevelopment, with the site that is part of this one in red just to the north of it. So just an aerial imagery showing that existing concrete hard standing as it was a former quarry. You may remember from 2013. So just run through the site itself. So the blue, we've got the refuse vehicles for parking, storage, etc. I'll show you some photos of that in a second. With the purple for staff parking, the yellow is for the ancillary buildings in the form of the porter cabins, which provide the welfare, canteen, toilet facilities for the staff members. There's also a bin storage area just to the northwestern side of the site, and this is where they store wheelie bins for them to supply them to our residents. Just a quick image of the porta cabin which has been installed on the site, which is able to be easily removed from the site. I'll just move on to quickly some photos. So we've got the entrance going in here, just turning into the right. Conveniently, there's a bin lorry going into the site, and then just the refuse parking as shown on the existing concrete hard standing. There we are. So there's the porta cabin, bin lorries and staff parking all together. So as the current redevelopment of Brookside Depot is still ongoing, they are requesting a further 10 months on their temporary permission, so this will take them to the 31st of December, just to provide them with a place to store their vehicles. So the recommendation on this one is to approve, and I hope you can go with it.
Any comments, or can we go straight to the vote? Straight to the vote? Right, recommendations approved with conditions. All those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Just got planning appeals, so I'll hand over to Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And there's not much to say on this one really. We've received no appeal decisions since the last committee, so there's nothing to report on those. We've had two that are in members' papers on page 102 that have been submitted, neither of which were committee decisions, but obviously as and when we hear back in the future, we'll report back in due course. That's it.
Thank you very much, everybody. I think we've done really well, finishing by 12:20.